Okay.
Yeah, need it.
It works.
I don't know, like, there's no time.
I do need a bid from you. Does it work?
Yes. Thank
Ready? Welcome, everybody, to the regular Board of Trustees meeting for Tuesday, October 12th, 2021. Deputy Mayor Cassell is excused. Trustee Sullivan may appear by virtually any moment, but we have a quorum. There's 3 of us present, and I see Trustee Taylor on the video. So since we do have a quorum, is there a motion to open the meeting? Trustee Darazi, second. Trustee Nell, all in favor. Meeting is officially open. Can we all rise for the Pledge of Allegiance? Pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
The directions on how to attend the meeting virtually and the public hearings virtually are on our website, and they are attached to the agenda, so I won't repeat that. The first item on the agenda is a presentation from Honeywell on the energy performance contract. So who's here to speak on that?
Terry Gary.
Come on up and speak to the
So
microphone.
Mayor, if I can introduce the report and the feasibility study. Honeywell spent much time in the village buildings looking at the current energy use and the different equipment and mechanisms that are in place with an eye towards coming up a preliminary feasibility study to make improvements to the facilities to achieve energy savings and to allow some of this to happen and the savings to actually pay for the cost of the improvements. So Honeywell submitted an extensive feasibility study, which is the first step in the process. And Terry Geary has been very helpful in helping to facilitate that. I thank him for his efforts. And he's here this evening to speak to you all, tell them where we are and what they found a little bit and what the next steps would be.
There you go. All set. So good evening, Mayor and Board. Richard, thank you for the opportunity to present here this evening. I told Richard I would keep it short and sweet, probably to about 20 minutes or so. But if you have any questions, if you want to go a little bit deeper or in any sort of direction, by all means, just stop me, raise your hand and ask questions. I've left some time at the end of the presentation to field questions, but certainly would prefer to take the questions at the point of the presentation that you have. So. So the agenda that I wanted to cover this evening, and certainly if there's any items on here or things you wanted to cover that are not here, I certainly can go in a different direction. Wanted to speak a little bit about just introducing myself, introducing Honeywell and what we do in this marketplace. Talk a little bit about the concerns that we see amongst municipalities. We focus predominantly on the public sector market. So I'm sure the challenges that you face are very common to the challenges that we see amongst many of our customers. I'm going to talk a little bit about what is energy performance contracting, the gist of really what we want to present tonight as a as a possible vehicle for you moving forward to get needed capital improvements done. Talk about typical energy conservation measures that we have looked at here. Talk a little bit about your utility spend. We did an analysis of your spend to date. We want to give you the numbers there. I want to talk a little bit about an overview of the recommendations that we have at this point in time. Talk about what the environmental impact of those recommendations are, and look at what the timeline looks like moving forward. So with that, is there anything additional that you don't see here on the agenda that you might have in the way of questions that, like I said, I'm certainly able to take a right or left turn if need be? But these are the items that we wanted to cover this evening. So a little bit about myself, my role within Honeywell. I act as their senior business consultant for New York State. So I handle our energy conservation. I lead our energy conservation group in the New York State marketplace. And we cover predominantly the public sector market, which is made up of public K through 12 municipalities like yourself. We do city work, county work, state work. We do a little bit of private commercial work, but again, the majority of our team's focus is in the public sector market. I've been with Honeywell for about 15 years, and prior to that, I was also in this marketplace. So I've got about 30 years of experience in the energy conservation marketplace, of which building automation is a very big part of that. And we'll talk about that in a little bit. You see my education background is in engineering degree from RPI. A little bit about Honeywell. So Honeywell is a US-based business. We've been in existence for about 135 years. We are an automation manufacturing company, but as well as a full-blown installer and service company for our equipment. About 50% of the products that we do manufacture are in the energy efficiency workplace. So our mantra is all about being safer, more comfortable, and more energy efficient. So we practice what we preach. We're about a $33 billion corporation. You can see in New York State alone, we've got about 1,100 employees. And we've got a tremendous focus on, as I said, the public sector marketplace and giving back to the local communities in terms of job creation and also in terms of environmental stewardship. And this is what I mentioned from the beginning. This is a typical set of issues that we see the municipal customers of ours facing day in and day out. And we're trying to, to help provide solutions for and utilizing energy performance contracting as a means for that solution. I'm sure none of this is new to you. Tight budgets, aging infrastructure, which we're going to certainly talk about today. Environmental issues. Everyone's got certain increased environmental stewardship goals that you're trying to achieve as well in these strong economic times. Well, at the same time, you're trying to minimize taxes. So it's a very tough balancing act. You've got deferred maintenance, repair issues. You want to minimize your tax increase. And you want to get all that done while at the same time being environmentally responsible. Very difficult mix. And we feel, again, that we've got a good answer for that situation. Certainly not going to address all these issues, but another mechanism you could take advantage of to address a lot of these concerns. So what is performance contracting? Does everybody have a little bit of experience with what energy performance contracting is? By a show of hands. So I'm going to say we're all fairly green in terms of what this is. It's a different way of getting capital work done. And I'm going to show a little comparison around your traditional way of getting work done is typically putting stuff out for public bid. You may hire an engineer, you may hire an architect to develop drawings and specs and bid documents. And then you put it out to the marketplace for public bid. you're bound by the low bidder. So now you may have a contractor that may not be qualified, but they're low price. And you can see some of the issues that often creates. What performance contracting is you bundle all of these services here under one contract. And it's a very mature market in New York State. It's been in existence for about 30 plus years. There's state law that mandates how public sector entities can procure energy performance contracts. You've got to go through a formal RFP process to select an energy company. And then we go through these steps, everything from under one contract, it's a design build approach. So we develop the scope of work with a lot of input from the customer. We do all the design work turnkey. We finance the project. So we're going to talk about that. It's not as though you're not raising taxes. You're not going out and selling bonds to get the work done. We're going to utilize your existing utility bucket, the money that you have in your utility budget today, and we're looking to reduce that. And those savings then will go to pay off of the financing piece. We do all our own construction management. We do all our own training. And then the big difference on the back end is we guarantee the results, which is what is called measurement and verification. Because if the savings that we're saying will pay for the work is not realized, Honeywell will make up the difference in that shortfall by physically issuing the difference in the way of either a check to you, or if you want, by way of services for that value. But that's a tremendous fundamental difference between how most municipalities procure work today. Again, they go out with a public bid approach. They get the low bid contractor to do the work. Often think about it, that work could be done during the summer. The contractor is done and paid and long gone before that equipment is even turned on, say for the heating season. Now you turn it on and there's issues. Very difficult to go back and find that contractor who's been paid and they're gone. Under a performance contract, we have every incentive to make sure that equipment operates the way it was intended to operate. Otherwise, we're going to be paying a check for the shortfall because the energy savings would not be realized. So our responsibility, our incentive to keep an eye on things to make sure they operate the way that they were originally designed exists throughout the term of the deal. And as I said in that bottom line, it transfers the risk to the energy service company versus the municipality where it needs to be. This gives you, in just a quick table format, I tried to capture the distinct differences that I just talked about. In terms of financial, how do you pay for work? Through your capital budget, or you go sell a bond for it? Performance contracting, I'm going to show you, we do it through your current utility spend. The contract term during a plan inspect, it literally is when the work is done and the warranty period is up, that relationship is over. Our relationship under an energy performance contract lasts for the term of the deal, which could average 10 to 20 years. That we are there to make sure the equipment, again, is operating the way it was intended to operate. And the energy savings are being realized each and every year of the term. Under a bid inspect job, you've got to pay that architect to develop bid packages to put on the street. Under an EPC, the ESCO takes the responsibility for all that upfront work. Everything that we've done to date in the way of the preliminary study was certainly done on our dime to assess whether or not there was an opportunity here. Under a bid inspect, you're often stuck with a low bid contractor that may not be qualified. And under a bid inspect, there's no guarantee in terms of the utility spend of that equipment.
Can I ask a quick question?
You got
So
it.
Richard, how do we get to this point? You engaged with them and then they are doing this audit.
Right.
Have you worked with them in other municipalities?
Yes, I have.
Got it.
Yep, satisfactorily.
Okay.
We did a job with Richard in the city of Peekskill. Successful project. We're in the guarantee phase. We're realizing the savings that we had guaranteed in year one. And we're just about heading into year two. So a very good Very good project where we were able to get done some needed capital improvements through a self-funding format. Without going into all the bullet points here, I think this pie chart here, these two pie charts give a good sense of before improvements. This is where you're at today. What you see in red and gray, that's your current utility spend. In gray is your current maintenance bucket. What do you spend in the way of repairs today? What do you spend in the way of preventative maintenance? What we look to do through a performance contract is certainly to decrease your energy spend. You can see the reduction in the red, decrease your maintenance costs, decrease your repairs. And what is left in green there are the savings that'll fund the deal. What I mean by that, the work gets financed. Think of it in terms of like a home mortgage. It's no different. The vehicle is called a tax-exempt municipal lease. The rates are as low as they've ever been for the public sector market. With your rating, you're looking at probably in the range of 1.5%, incredibly low. So we would finance the work over the recommended period of time, 15 or 20 years, and your annual debt, like a mortgage against that lease, gets offset by the utility savings and the operational savings that we will drive and guarantee as part of our work. And that's the essence of performance contracting, trying to find enough energy savings to fund needed capital work in your municipality.
And then it also
Yeah.
funds Honeywell, right? And it also funds Honeywell, like your
It does.
sliver of that green would be you guys.
100%.
Got it.
Yeah, the guarantee, it's a great point. The guarantee is not just on the energy savings, the operational savings. And this is another critical difference I didn't mention in terms of your traditional bid and spec work. It's a guarantee on cost. There are no change orders. So when I put together a final contract that's got a fixed sell price, that's it. In the way of this building, and what could happen is maybe our design is slightly off and we've got to make modifications in the field. That's on my dime. So when the contract is complete, what the economics look like and guaranteed in full. Cost is fixed, guaranteed savings are fixed. That is never the case with a bid and spec job. That is usually riddled with change order after change order because you are entirely reliant on that initial set of bid documents that you paid an architect and engineer to put together. And if it wasn't 100% correct, as the low awarding contractor was in the field and they found a few things that weren't on the drawings, those are all legitimate change orders that often are not budgeted for, and are tough to deal with after the fact. What I wanted to give here is just a sense of an energy performance contract is usually a balance of short, quick payback items, payback in the sense of just what you think. It costs $10 and it's got $3 of energy savings. It pays for itself in 3 years. What a performance contract is usually a mix of all three buckets, because most customers are trying to get done work. I'll use you guys as an example. When I sat down with Richard and Jeff and Elisa, it was, they identified some critical needs in this building: a roof replacement, the rooftop units on the roof, air handling units inside the building for cooling, the boiler plant, major, equipment that's beyond its useful life, significant repair dollars being spent year over year. How am I going to find a path to get this work done if I don't have the capital? I don't have the money available. So those are the long-term items. Those have long payback items. You talk about windows, think about your home. If you do a window replacement or a roof replacement, they tend to be, yes, the equipment's got a long life expectancy, but it also has a long payback. So we looked at your entire municipality, all the buildings, including exterior lighting, street lighting. Could we find, really quick payback items to pay for the longer payback items that need to get done. So that collectively, right? Collectively, all that together, the quick payback items, the long-term, collectively, it has a good enough payback where when you fund it over a period of time, we have enough savings to offset that debt cost. That's the goal. And that was really the intent of doing an initial preliminary analysis, was to see, are you a good candidate? You know, for me to even recommend moving forward then with an RFP process, which the law requires. So I think that's what the original ask was of Honeywell. Look at our utility spend, and Jeff and the team were great getting us the utility data. We looked at that data pre-COVID, right? So we wanted to make sure we had a good representation of your actual conditions. So we looked at calendar year 2019. And then we walked the buildings and spent a pretty large amount of time getting in each facility, checking each lighting fixture, interior, exterior, to assess, yeah, there is a good opportunity. Because what we can do then is compare your utility spend with your peers and do a benchmark right away to say, you know what, either you're in the upper quartile of high performing municipalities or you're not. And I don't think it's, most municipalities are not in the upper quartile. So from an energy perspective, you are at a very high BTUs per square foot, which means for us, it's a good opportunity to drive energy savings. We identified a number of measures to do that, including, again, the needed improvements in this building, because ultimately that was the goal. Didn't make any sense to recommend a whole lot of measures that didn't really fit your goals, which you were looking to get replaced, because you've got some, again, needed improvements here for equipment that's beyond its useful life that needs to be addressed. Any questions before moving on? So this is your utility analysis. Again, going back to calendar or fiscal year 2019. I'd say it's, again, it should be incredibly accurate, given, you know, we were able to collect utility bills for all of your utilities. So back then you spent about $266,000. You can see the makeup between electric, natural gas, propane, and water. No surprise, the majority is electric. Second is your gas heating. So that's our starting point. And like I said, from that spend, from walking the buildings and knowing the type of buildings, we knew right off the bat, too high, energy inefficient. We've got a good opportunity here. Let's go a little bit further. And so we did that. In the feasibility study that we had put together, we had identified 18 different energy conservation measures. And you can see across the top there by building, you've got the 8 buildings, the last column being street lighting. So not every measure is a recommendation for every building. And not every, ultimately, not every measure will be something that we would recommend for you just based on payback. We wanted to give you certainly a breadth of everything that we saw, whether it was economically good or bad. So this was our starting point. Across all the buildings, 18 different measures. And again, it ranges from lighting, boiler replacements, roof replacements, pipe insulation, building envelope improvements. We looked at your IT infrastructure a little bit. How do we conserve power across your computer platform? Water conservation. You do get billed for water. Is there a way to lower that usage as well? And then what we did, and this is what we would ultimately do if you were to proceed down the path of an RFP, we said, what would our recommendation look like? So that's everything we looked at. Now, if we're getting back to the goal of why we were brought in terms of looking at the needed improvements here, the ECMs you see down that first left-hand column, those are the ECMs that we initially now would recommend, which you can see, well, maybe not without the feasibility study in hand, but I'll go down that list here real quick. ECM1, LED lighting. So we would recommend a complete LED conversion across your entire platform, all your buildings, as well as all of your exterior lighting. So that measure, again, cuts across the entire municipality. ECM2 is the street lighting upgrades. The village has done a significant amount of LED work exterior. This just completes it. And in our feasibility study, we have a very detailed lighting line by line that shows every existing light fixture that you have today, both interior and exterior, and what our recommendation would be to convert it to LED. So at the end of the day, we're looking to convert you 100%, which is a great thing. These light fixtures then have a tremendously longer life expectancy than what you have today. So not only do you have energy savings, you've got maintenance savings because you're not looking to change out lamps and ballasts on an annual basis. The third is boiler plant upgrades. That's the boiler plant here, Village Hall. ECM6 air handling unit replacement. That's the units here in Village Hall. Number 7, rooftop unit replacement. That's here. 8, condensing units. That's here. 9, pump and motor. That's down in here at the boiler plant. The next ECM, building management system upgrades. This is across the entire village. So what is this? This is where we can utilize Honeywell's technology as a manufacturing company. So we manufacture building automation equipment. In its simplest form, you can think of a thermostat that you might have in your house. So this is a little more sophisticated than that, but it's to put controls on every piece of equipment in every building. So now we have the ability to control schedules and set points 24/7. And that's the key. Probably the number one driver for inefficiency is just lack of control. Equipment that's left on 24/7. A simple mistake like that over a weekend in the heart of the winter can cost you significantly. The other benefit of this, now think about it, is if you have building automation on every piece of equipment, it's Honeywell's window into the system. So we have a group that's manned 24/7. Their sole responsibility on all of our performance contracts is to remotely keep an eye on the buildings to ensure the original design is being kept intact. That's how we can guarantee the energy savings. You've got another set of eyes now, whether it's at night or on a weekend, because we're monitoring critical points. And if we see something that's not the way it should be, like I said, maybe there's a plant running on a weekend, we can reach out to you guys and say, hold on a second, was there something going on where you overrode the equipment and forgot to put it back? It's a way to catch it right away, as opposed to waiting to the end of the year and saying, oh my, we missed the savings and this is what happened 6 months ago. No, we want to monitor it real time and give you a heads up if there's, again, any piece of equipment that's not operating the way it was intended to operate.
Terry, we're about a half hour in already, so could you give us highlights and?
Sure, probably got about 5 minutes tops.
Okay.
Does that work?
Yeah.
And the other measures there are also across the whole village: pipe insulation, building envelope. They are what you think they are. Pipe insulation, you've got a lot of bare hot water piping that's losing heat. It's got a very good payback. Again, taking care of all those quick payback items helps pay for the work here. And ultimately, that recommended scope of work, you can see, has a significant environmental impact. That's what I wanted to show down below. In terms of when you think of greenhouse gas emissions, look at that scope of work driving significant tons of carbon dioxide reduction, nitrous oxide reduction, and sulfur oxide, the 3 primary greenhouse gases. And you put that in layman terms, what does that mean? You can see here in terms of barrels of oil saved over a 10-year period. almost 8,000 barrels of oil. When you think of it, sometimes people put it in terms of gallons of gasoline saved. I like my favorite is in terms of trees planted or forests saved. You can see that scope of work over a 10-year period equates to almost 30 acres of forest land being saved. So it's a combination of getting needed work done while at the same time, hopefully driving towards your sustainability goals. So what does the timeline potentially look like moving forward? This would be our recommendation. We did a preliminary assessment and submitted it back in July. And I think we sat down with some representatives of the village in August. Again, we determined absolutely there's efficiencies to be gained here, significant efficiencies to be gained. We believe there's a path to, if not self-fund these needed improvements, come pretty darn close, because the law doesn't require it to be 100% self-funding. I'll use Peekskill virtually as an example. I mean, they added air conditioning to City Hall in certain areas that didn't have it. So that job was probably 90% funded through utility savings. And they only had to come up with a very small amount on an annual basis to get the work done. But again, that's certainly your choice. So it doesn't have to be 100% self-funding. But the good news here is that there's significant efficiency gains to be had to get work done. The law for energy performance contracting, it's Article 9 of the energy law, you can look it up, requires the district to secure an energy company through an RFP process. I've provided a very generic, it's not a Honeywell-based RFP, to the village to look at, so you have that. The things that RFP looks at is references. It looks at how do you go about performing the detailed energy audit, which would be done after selection. And the most important thing it looks at, which is the biggest differentiator from energy company to energy company, is how do you guarantee the savings? That's the biggest area where you want to protect yourself. And I would say by far, the way we do it is a utility bill type comparison. So it's the layperson's thought, if you're going to save me $100,000, I expect my utility bill to go down $100,000. Most energy companies don't do that. We do. So looking at how you guarantee the savings, that RFP pulls all that out, and then you can make a decision on an energy service company. Once you do, I'm estimating it's about a 3-month period to do a detailed audit and produce a final contract, which could be done in the time frame of February of next year. Ideal time to do this because you want to be in the heart of the heating season, because we'll come in here late at night and on weekends to see actually what's going on. We'll data log equipment. It allows us to get a much better look, doing it during the heating season, because most of your expenses in terms of the gas expenses are during this time of year. Then execute a contract financing, start the job in roughly in the spring, April timeframe. I show a 12-month process for that scope of work before. It's probably closer to, I would say, 6, 7, 8 months. The only variable that's difficult right now, as you probably experience with other work, is lead time on equipment right now. Given the pandemic, not only is there a large uptick in cost, the lead times are very long and drawn out right now. So if that improves, this is probably a 6 to 9 month install project. And that's it. Like I said, we were excited, given the opportunity to do a preliminary assessment. There absolutely is a great opportunity to drive energy efficiency improvements here, enough to support quite a bit of needed work under a self-funding basis. And that was the original goal that was kind of given to us. So we'd love the opportunity to see it move forward through an RFP process. And certainly would love to take the opportunity to answer any other questions that you might have at this point in time.
I do have a question. I remember a few years back, it cannot be no more than 10 years, that all of the features of our streetlights were changed. So what is different? Like what is the difference between what we have to what you are offering, considering that this is, I think, the highest amount that I'm seeing on the list, and what is the estimate of savings that those upgrades will provide to us?
It's a good question. For the streetlight work that you've done, we're not looking to, we wouldn't recommend to replace the LED lights you've already put in. Again, if you look at our feasibility study, so I give a list of all of your lights, and I clearly say, you know what, for this, we recommend no retrofit. For this, we do. So again, the money you've already spent converting streetlights to LED stays. They're good. It's what we would recommend. It's the ones that are not. So that conversion was not 100% complete. We did a detailed audit of all the exterior lighting. And so for exterior, we're just recommending to finish it. Those lights that weren't touched, we would convert to LED just like you did for the ones you did on your own.
So are we pretty much speaking about the whole entire village?
Correct. Both interior and exterior. So that at the end of the day, you're 100% LED, which you're not today.
I understand. Thank you.
Yep. In terms, you also, asked about savings and dollar amounts. I didn't want to, I've struggled whether or not I should get into the weeds of the money and the savings because it is a preliminary look. But I did provide a preliminary cash flow in the feasibility study. I believe it's at the end of the section where I go into the energy conservation measures. So for the measures that I had recommended, which were predominantly here, and then looking at the other energy savings measures to fund that, it was about a $2.6 million estimate. Savings, I believe, were a little over 100,000 per year to pay for that. And you can see, like I said, I've got a cash flow. It's 11 by 17 pullout. That'll show you on an annual basis. Here's your debt cost to finance that work. Here's the annual energy savings we would guarantee. Here's the annual operational savings, because again, you're spending a significant amount of repair dollars right now on the roof, on the rooftop units, on the boiler. I'm not saying those repairs go away 100%, because certainly moving forward, even if you put new equipment in, over time, it's going to start to degrade and fail. But you're going to have a significant reduction. Take the roof, for example. I mean, there's a number of areas where you've consistently see leaks every time that there's bad weather. And you often are paying someone to come in and patch that roof area. That goes away. The roof we would install has a 20-year warranty or 25. No repairs. So that's an easy thing. If I say, if I know what you're spending now in the way of repairs, that when we're done, that's 100% savings right there. So we do have a good estimate of the economics in the feasibility study, but it was about a $2.5, $2.6 million scope of work. And with the savings, it was offsetting about, I want to say, 75% of that. It wasn't 100% self-funding, as I said before, but it showed you can get all that work done without trying to raise $2.5 million, but maybe it's $40,000 a year over a 15-year period. That's doable. Or again, you can pull it back to be self-funding. You just therefore don't get as much work done. But all of that is customizable by yourself. We would take your direction in terms of what are the key jobs you want to get done and what are the goals before we would do a detailed energy audit, which would then happen after selection from the RFP process.
That leads me to the RFP process itself. So we would then, and I don't know how much you would be able to answer this, but we would decide on the scope of the work.
You put out the RFP for the energy company, and then any people have a right to respond to it. Amongst them may be Honeywell, most likely. And then you would evaluate the returns and determine which one you wanted to go with.
And which one, I mean, because some of the projects that you have, for instance, you're addressing the ambulance corps building, right? We may decide we don't want to touch the ambulance corps building, right?
Yep.
Right? So then would that be part of the RFP when we put that out to include what parts we want included, or?
Yeah, I'll answer that question. So the RFP is not, again, don't think of your typical plan and spec
I
world. The
guess I
RFP is
am.
not for any scope of work. The RFP is really an RFQ. It requests qualifications. So you look at the qualifications from different energy companies. Provide the village your references, your last 10 jobs done in New York with the public sector customers like yourself. You ask the energy company, how do you guarantee savings? Tell me the methodology, because again, that is the biggest differentiator in terms of you being protected. I could show you EPCs from competitors where it's very much a stipulated agreement. The moment you sign the contract, those savings are stipulated for the term. Versus again, for us, it's very much a utility bill comparison. We look at your utility spend a year after our work is done, and that's the number that we're looking to guarantee, or we'll pay your shortfall. So that RFP is really just a qualifications-based approach. You select an energy company, and then you sit down with them, and just like you said, you direct them on the scope you want. You identify out of your 8 buildings,
Right.
We don't want to invest in these 2-3 buildings. Perfect. It's not our job. It's we take your goals and direction, and then we go from there and try to find ideally a self-funding path to get that work done that you're looking to get done, or as close to that as possible. Like I said, if we can get 90 cents on the dollar covered, maybe that's enough for you. Wow, I can handle that small amount on an annual basis moving forward. But again, no scope in the RFP. Select an energy company and then sit down with them and really work collaboratively towards what the goal is. And then you send that energy company off, like I said, for about a 90-day period. That's what I'm estimating it would take us to do what we call a detailed energy audit. Because I've got to spend a lot of time now, more time than I ever spent, doing the preliminary analysis. Because Honeywell is not going to be in a position to guarantee energy savings without all of that data to support it. That means I'm going to come in here in the evening. I'm going to put data loggers. I'm going to know what's going on at night, what equipment's running, what temperatures you're running in the evening. I'll probably data log lights. How often are your lights on? These are all variables that I'm going to need for my energy savings calculations. So when I go back to Honeywell and say I want to guarantee $100,000 a year, I've got as much of a stringent review internally than probably well more than even externally with our customers. Because once I give you that contract, you're going to see that it is a guarantee on cost and energy savings.
So just to back up what Terry was saying, it's a fluid process once you determine the entity that you want to deal with. And so, for example, when we ask them to come in, we ask them to look at everything. And so we may have some windows in the back of the building that may or may not have been included. And that's, it's not a great payback. It takes a long time to pay them back. So, you may add on some of those. You may also have an opportunity to look at more green solutions that you might want them to consider. And I mean, these things cost money, so you're going to balance one against the other. So it's kind of like the capital plan that we talked about recently. It's a fluid relationship. It's not set in stone. What you're going to decide on is who you want, to undertake this process, and then you're going to decide on the inventory.
I said, and
It's
one
very
thing to
attractive,
that.
but Can you address one issue that I think is sort of lacking from the conversation? Could you talk a little bit about your fee structure and how that plays into this? So this is a great analysis, by the way, the pro forma budget, but I'm not asking for hard numbers because it's impossible at this point, but just a sort of range of a percentage range on total cost based on what you normally do in a small village like ours, and maybe use some other examples of some recent projects to help us understand.
Good question. So different than other energy companies, we have the ability, as I said, we're not just a manufacturer of equipment, we're also an installer and a service provider. So we have the ability for a lot of these measures to self-perform the work. Some of the work we do not. Like for the roof, for example, I've got roofing partners that I would sub that work out to. Again, your contract would be a single contract with Honeywell. So again, you're not left, if you have an issue with any particular measure, trying to chase down any of our sub-partners, it's all with Honeywell. So where I'm going with that, at the end of the day, we give you a fixed cost. It's no different than if you put the roof out for bid and somebody bids it and says, here's my price. So our overhead, our profit, all of my cost estimates are baked into that number. I'll tell you, Honeywell is a publicly traded company. So part of that RFP that I gave to the village is very standard state-approved RFP. It asked for my audited financials. That shows you what our company's overhead and profit range is. So I could tell you, I can show you our last 3 or 4 years of audited financials. You'll see what our overhead and profit is as a corporation. You'll see our net operating profit might be 6, 7, 8%, somewhere in that range.
It might be hard for me to tease that out and compare that to how I understand a more traditional, sort of design, bidding, sort of process. So,
but I wanted to make sure that it was clear, we're not a broker. So that's the difference, because a lot of other energy companies are brokers where they'll tell you, I'm going to sub everything out because I don't even have my own engineers. I don't have my own electricians. I don't have my own mechanics. And I'm going to charge you, here's my markup fee on top of everything I sub out. That's what a lot of people understand is, okay, what's your fee structure? It's different for me because I make the equipment. I make the building automation equipment that I'm proposing. It's not a markup. I may have my own electricians in here doing the lighting work. So see, I'm actually putting together an estimate where I have to estimate the labor to do that work. I'm not just hiring an electrical contractor and saying, hey, my markup is 10%. So here's the guy I'm going to hire, and here's the 10% on top of that. A lot of our competitors are like that, where they can tell you, here's my fee structure, 10 and 10, right? 10% overhead, 10% profit. I'm going to tell you, if you look at our audited financials, which are very easy to see in our RFP response, they'll clearly show, here is Honeywell's overhead as a corporation, and here's our annual profit margin. And I'll tell you, we look to, obviously, my team is held by the corporation to try to stay consistent, right, with those numbers. Sometimes we're more aggressive because we're trying to get into a marketplace, or trying to retain our place there, or sometimes it's the opposite. But I'd say on average, we're certainly looking to stay consistent with the overhead and profit that you would see in our financials.
So how long would it go? Like if you engage with Honeywell, how long does it, like if we're saying we spend X on utilities, you guys are saying, okay, we're going to take that number and split this off, make the improvements, but we're still expected to pay that number for how long? And how long are you guaranteeing that? Like, how long is
Good
this
question.
engagement? And like, as things go wrong, if it's your own equipment, are we just now beholden to you forever? Or like, how does that ever break up?
No, good question. So our guarantee will run and mirror the length of your borrowing term.
20
Most energy
years?
performance contracts are somewhere from 15 to 20 years. So our guarantee will match that, because again, we're saying that our savings will offset your debt cost in that year. Obviously, if you want to get a little bit more work done, going over a 20-year term will allow you to do that. I would tell you the market, the interest rates now, I've been in the market for over 30 years, are at the all-time lowest I've ever seen it. I mean, it's virtually free money when you look at as your utility costs are increasing. I mean, if you're getting 1.5% interest rate on a 15-year term, or 2% on a 20-year term, that's unbelievable. You know, I tried to be conservative in the cash flow that I had in the feasibility study. I think I ran it at 2.5%. And again, trying to always then better kind of that initial projection. So again, to answer your question, the guarantee will run in parallel with the term of the financing that you decide, which is typically 15 to 20 years. What we also like, I think you were getting at different measures have different warranty. Like I mentioned, the roof replacement. At a minimum, that's going to be 20 years. So you're going to be protected in terms of no repair costs for that term. LED lighting, a lot of that lighting has got 10-year warranty. So the question becomes, when equipment that we put in is then outside the warranty and there's repairs, does the pro forma cover that? Does it look at that? And we do. Because we put in a building automation system, which I highly recommend as one of the measures, that should be maintained over time. Just like a brand new car, you want to change the oil. So those maintenance costs, which don't need to be with Honeywell, but I'm proposing, Honeywell manufactures an open protocol system, and we sell through multiple dealers in this area, Westchester County. So therefore, you have the ability to go out for public bid to service the equipment that I install and get multiple pricing. So this is not something that I'm recommending, a proprietary system that you're then locked into Honeywell for servicing that equipment for 15, 20 years. Not at all. It's an open protocol backnet system. It's maintained and serviced by multiple dealers in the area, authorized by Honeywell, and they can all competitively compete against each other. But we want to make sure that those costs are also included in the pro forma. I don't have that in that particular way. Again, that was a preliminary look, but I felt there was enough conservatism in the interest rate in other areas that I can show that on the final end and show you that you've got protection for future repair costs that will come up. You know, if I put a new rooftop unit or replace condensing units here, you'll start to see some repairs in, years 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. And you want to make sure that we've got some estimates for that.
Terry, a question if I could, from Zoom, or out of nowhere, it may seem to you. I don't know whether you can see.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's all right. But anyway, what
Lawrence
happens?
Taylor, I'm looking at thinking about it. I'm a big Giants fan. I'm like, Lawrence Taylor, sir.
That's a different guy. Anyway,
Understood.
the question I had was, what happens if 5, 6, 7 years down the road here, situation is such that technology has evolved and all of a sudden something is much better, cheaper, much more efficient? Where does that leave us relative to your contract? We obviously have the debt still, I believe, but then what do we kick you guys to the curb, and is there any other contractual obligation?
No, it's a great question. So I started out this evening saying our primary market, so I'm 100% public sector, but most of our work is still within public K through 12. That's been a mature market for 25 years. And the question you asked, we constantly evaluate new technologies. And when the technologies present themselves with a good enough payback, we would recommend that to you. Again, LED lighting is a perfect example. We've done many phase 2s, phase 3s with K through 12 customers when LED lighting came about, which might have been 6, 7 years ago. Yeah, maybe 10 years ago, but there were everybody wanted to get into it, and you saw a lot of failures in the equipment when it first came out. But with LED lighting, the payback was significant enough, or we went back to customers that were still in the term of the deal and said, hey, we've got an opportunity for 3 or 4 year better payback. Do you want to do a phase 2? And now maybe you can get some additional work done that we didn't get done under phase 1. It's certainly your call. But my point is we constantly evaluate new technologies. And when we feel they've got good enough payback, we present it to the customer. You've got the opportunity to do more work or not, your call. We always know that if you look at a 15-year term, I think I put it as one of the issues that municipalities face, or a 20-year term, new technologies are constantly emerging. We like to think that we're a consultant or a partner during that guarantee period to help you evaluate those technologies. and see if it makes sense to invest.
Anything else? Okay, thank you for taking the time to explain this all to us. It's very interesting. So obviously we have to take a lot of thought about, but
I
we
appreciate it,
appreciate
the
it.
opportunity. If any questions come out following this meeting, Richard and Jeff and Elisa have my contact information. Don't hesitate to reach out with any questions that I can answer via phone or email.
we will. I mean,
Thank you.
the depth of the presentation and the report that we got was just really amazing. So thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Mayor. Appreciate it.
Thanks. Next on the list is a presentation for the site plan application for the property at 417 Broadway, Sacred Heart Church. Is anybody here for that? Anybody via Zoom? Okay. Can we move forward on the referral, Richard, without having one presented to us?
I think we need somebody present, Laura Lee usually indicates, right? Laura Lee?
Oh, there she is. So she's on mute.
I'm here. Hi. Yeah, we actually have a memo recommending you can put it on the agenda for referral, but you always want to see what the concept is, because when you refer it in the past, sometimes you make recommendations about specific things you'd like to see stressed. And I know in the past, we've been remiss with making sure those comments are apparent to the planning board, and something we saw as a simple parking lot expansion recently turned into a negotiated settlement in the end. So I stressed that it's always important for the applicant to come and do a conceptual presentation to you. This is what we're proposing. And if
Okay.
you have comments, you'd like pervious pavers instead of this, or you'd like them to look at this instead of that. It's important to give the planning board some guidance on that. So I don't know if you want to put it on for second call, and we can see if, because we do have a resolution on later in the agenda. Perhaps we can reach out and just be sure someone is available to provide with, even if it's a verbal conceptual, I don't even know if you have access to the plans at this point, but.
Okay, we'll move on to the public hearings point section of the agenda. So action item, public hearing number 1 is a continuation of public hearing to consider an application for site plan approval / waivers for development of a property located at 398 Ashford Avenue. Is there a motion to open this public hearing? Trustee Patino, second. Trustee DeRozzi, all in favor? Public hearing is officially open. Is there someone here to speak on 398 Ashford?
So Liz, correct us if we're wrong. You notified all these people to appear this evening, right?
Yes, sir.
I mean, this is the second time this has happened.
No,
So
he's here. Right?
Wait, no, we're talking about
No,
398 Ashford.
398 Ashford.
He's here.
Oh,
okay,
I
great.
wrote him.
And
I'm here, right here.
Mr. Mayor, I do believe you opened the hearing at the last meeting, so this would be just to reopen the hearing. I think you heard from comments from the your planner who was present. And, we just wanted to be sure the applicant had a chance to appear for the next portion of this. We did adjourn it to a date certain, so.
Yes. So we opened the public hearing. The public hearing is now open. We do have a memo from the village planner. Would the village planner like to make more comments, clarifying?
Just to reiterate, as this board moves forward, there are a few waivers that this board will have to provide for this application, and that's specifically focused on the 2 parking spaces, the minimum residential dwelling units, also I believe it was maximum impervious coverage. And so these are the items that you will need to, it's actually three One is the impervious coverage, 2 parking spaces, and the minimum residential dwelling unit size. And then also in addition, this board will have to decide if you want to apply a payment in lieu of parking. The applicant is proposing 2 of the on-street parking spaces on Ashford Avenue as parking spaces per your code. And the planning board is recommending that the village board direct the applicant to provide a payment in lieu of, as opposed to having those on-street parking spaces.
With regard to the planning board, is that, I mean, other than that, they've recommended that this be.
Yes, other than that, they recommended this particular application. And I did provide this, the board a part 2 in terms of your seeker review. I do not recommend this particular application needing to do any additional environmental reviews at this point. It's all of their impacts are minor and are mitigated as part of the overall project itself.
So does the applicant want to make any statements or comments at this point?
The only comment I would like to make, first of all, I apologize regarding missing the last meeting. I was not aware. There was some miscommunication, but here I am, and I'm glad to have this time to meet with you. The only thing I would like to say with regards to the payment in lieu of parking and the 2 spaces on Ashford Avenue that have been recommended and discussed. If I did make those payments in lieu of parking, from what I understand, it's supposed to go to local parking spaces, essentially, from what I understand. And I think those 2 spaces on Ashford Avenue would be the most local parking spaces that that we can add to the area. So.
So you're fine with the payment in lieu of parking?
I'm fine with the payment in lieu of parking as long as it can go towards those 2 spaces on Ashford Avenue, which will cost money to create, essentially. But that will add 2 spaces on Ashford Avenue, and I'm like, as long as we can do that, I don't see a problem with it. I mean, I would like to have available parking for the tenants in the building.
No,
That's what I was going to say.
I think maybe
Right.
I'm having a hard time understanding what you're saying, because 1, that's not how the pilot program works. So you don't pay it and then it gets put into your project. And second, I don't know how we would necessarily create new parking spaces on Ashford Avenue. The ones that are available are the ones that are available. And I think our concern is that it's too narrow a roadway to have at the entrance and exit, where people are often coming off of the highway parkway fast. It just doesn't seem like a safe arrangement. So I don't think we want those parking spaces there on the street in front of the building for those reasons. But what is it that you're, explain what you mean?
Okay, so that has been discussed with planning, and for the most part, there was an objection. There was not objection, other than from yourself, from what I understand, to the spaces actually being on Ashford Avenue. There is enough room there. They wouldn't be on Ashford Avenue. There's enough space. The plan has been reviewed, and there's enough space in front of the building for there to add spaces, which includes kind of a bit of barriers to protect the building that we plan on putting in onto that sidewalk area. And
so it's sort of a curb cut, like cutting into the curb in front of the building to make space for the car. Is that what you're
correct? There's right now, I forgot, I think there's like 13 feet in front of the building, and there's enough space to have 2 spaces not be on Ashford Avenue, but obviously on the other side of what would be the white line and off of the roadway, essentially. And that's what's been proposed and reviewed.
So just,
That
He's
is
kind of
correct.
doing,
That is-
he's talking about something like this, right?
Just so- go ahead.
That is part of his on his site plan, and I don't know if we can.
because this is, just correct me if I'm wrong, the planning board said in their,
The planning board, yes, the planning board did have concerns
Right.
with parking on Ashford Avenue as the applicant is proposing.
right,
And
so the
they,
planning board says on-street parking spaces are too close to the on-ramp of the Sawmill River Parkway.
Right.
Right? So the payment in lieu of would be, instead of having those parking spaces,
that's correct.
you pay a lump sum into the village's fund,
That's correct.
which we would use how we see fit.
That's correct.
That's understanding, correct.
Okay. The other question I think, and you raised, Valerie, is the tandem spots.
Yes.
Can I just go back? So I just want to clarify one thing, just so it doesn't keep coming up. That payment is sort of like I mean, this isn't the right term, but it's a penalty, for lack of a better term, for not having enough parking on your site. It's not you give us money and then we spend twice as much to give you more parking spaces. That's not the,
And the idea
not the way
is
the
that
program is designed.
considering the issues that we have with parking, we are completely encouraging to have and to add additional parking in the village. However, what I recall from seeing on these plans was something that I definitely agree with Trustee Patino. I don't see how it's possible that will be a safe location for parking if I am recollecting the information of the parking spaces being right in front of the building. Because entering is the area where there is a turn off the bridge to enter the highway. There is also the entrance directly into the highway. So I do recall seeing these plans and I have significant concern about the safety of those, of that area with parking spaces in front of the building.
Okay.
Right, so the planning board is saying, don't have it there, but make a payment in lieu of parking.
Well, just so if I can address, so a couple of things. My understanding, Michael, was from the previous engineer, from George, was that the intention of the pileup was a penalty, so to say, but it was to go to improve or go to create spaces or improve parking spaces where available in the vicinity of the application site. If that understanding is not correct, then I stand corrected. Having said that, if it's just a penalty, then I wouldn't. It's not like I'm just looking to pay a pileup. I feel like this is a unique building where if I'm not allowed to add any spaces and I can't create any additional space, I'm not either adding any mass to the existing building. This building is exactly as is. If it was goes back to the original argument, if there was retail there would be a much higher demand for parking. I'm lowering the demand by making it into residential. It's not a flower shop that's going to.
I understand all that. I just want to make clear that we're not going to agree with you because we don't know what the cost would be to implement the curb cut and parking into the portion of sidewalk, which would keep the cars off of the street and therefore out of the way of the on-ramp at this point, because so you said you would pay for the pileup if we agreed to put it back in, and I'm just saying we don't agree to that. So
that's fine. No problem.
You can look at it. We'd be certainly happy to entertain it, and if it works out to be beneficial and cost effective, then we'd be happy to put some work into that area.
And just for clarification, the use of the funds does require it to go towards construction of a parking facility, transportation improvements, including vehicles or station improvements, but it does not specifically tie it to anywhere near the location of a development of a project.
I just want to make sure you heard that, because that makes it clear that we're not required to spend that money on that site. We could theoretically put it at the parking lot outside of Village Hall if we wanted to build a parking structure, that type of thing.
I understand, Mayor. I guess in that case, I would ask the Board of Trustees to reconsider the pileup, because this seems like an uncontrollable penalty to me. I'm proposing a reduction of car traffic in the area, something that would reduce the amount of cars. And it's not like I'm adding or creating more mass in this area.
What are you saying? It's an uncontrollable cost. It's a set fee that you pay and goes into a general fund. It's one-time payment and that's it.
What's the pileup? What's the payment?
The actual fee, I would have to take a look at the fee schedule.
Did we change it based upon the amount? No, it's 10. Yes, no, Jeff. Jeff confirmed. So are we ready to move on to the next topic on this project? I mean, no. Okay. So, and I guess we're going kind of in those order. I mean, you would propose to install tandem spots. So questions are, how will these spots be distributed to the 8 units? How are the cars going to maneuver in and out of these spots? It looks like it's going to be a very tight, short, slight sight distance. So can you address those for us?
I think, it's a small building. People know each other. As long as people can, we would communicate general schedules and people would work around that. We have people, there's 3 nurses, they work night shift, things like that. I mean, it would be something that we would coordinate internally, but as long as we can fit the cars, that's the objective. This isn't a busy parking lot. This is a close-knit building.
I hate to put you on the spot, Val, but have you seen this work successfully in other places?
Well, I mean, usually with tandem, they will designate certain parking spaces for apartments. And a lot of times you'll find the tandem will be 2 spaces per apartment. So that's where the question was raised on how you're going to, spread out these particular spaces amongst the various apartments. That being said, there are already apartments existing there at this point in time, and the parking hasn't been fully established on site. So one of the things that the board could consider doing is having him actually provide you some sort of parking management plan as a condition of approval, just so that you have at least some sort of sense of how that parking is going to be distributed.
Right, because I hate to have the police called every so often when someone's can't get their car out because someone's not around or there's a fight going on. I mean, that seems like it could be problematic to me. I don't know. You seen this, Mike, in your life as an architect, or?
No, I mean, I want to make this site work for the
Right,
applicant.
exactly.
Because there are a number of reasons why this is beneficial. So, there is a little bit of a hardship here and the site constraints and the size of the units and some things like that. Just anecdotally, I go by there quite often. There's rarely like 1 or 2 cars in that lot as it is, and it seems like a fairly decent size. I'd be willing to give the applicant the benefit of the doubt that they can work out a plan. And if they, if they can't, I guess
Don't call us.
don't call us. Yeah.
I don't envision it going to the police department. I don't envision that happening. I think, like I said, it's a small, close-knit building. I do understand your concern, Mayor, but I don't see worst case scenario. That's why we communicate with each other. If there is a parking situation, then it's, hey, I'm leaving early tomorrow morning. Can we switch spaces? And just like many people, I'm sure, who are here may have tandem spaces in their house and might leave before their partner. You work it out and you make it happen. And everyone is happy to have off-street parking as the trade-off for maybe having to come down and move their car, one day. And that's okay.
Okay, Christy, how do you feel about it?
Yeah, what was I gonna say? How many people, you have 4 units that are full right now and 2 are the ones that are being added that are empty. So right now your parking lot is handling 4 units of
I have
people.
5 units. I have 5 units that are occupied right now.
Okay, and then there's 2 more that are not being incorporated. But like Mike is saying, we drive by there all the time and I know that lot and I never really see it full or close to it. So I don't know. I yield to that.
Okay. Laura, how do you feel?
I agree. I really I have witnessed a couple of accidents, David, right in that intersection, and that's my concern. But other than
We
that,
all have.
in reference to your lot, definitely there's just really basic traffic that I've seen there. I have never seen a congestion.
Larry, how do you feel about the tandem spots?
It's one question, first of all, as I heard this described, is this going to be in the sidewalk immediately in front of the building? Or is this the lot that's to the west, kind of up Ashford Avenue? What are we talking about here? Are we talking about putting cars right in front of where the building is now?
It seems like this, it seems like that's been shot down this evening.
Fine. Because that part of it would be more problematic to me. And then the second thing is, I can't tell from looking at the materials that I've seen, including trying to look at a Google view of it while this conversation's been going on, as to whether or not from that lot you could do anything but, can you turn left and go up Ashford into town? Or does it all have to be onto the Sawmill River Parkway from there?
Right.
Oh, yeah, really?
Yeah.
No, you can turn left. I do encourage people to back into the space so that it's easier to pull out onto Ashford.
I agree with Michael, and I think what the sentiment of the other trustees that, you know, it's been nice to see that property improved, and it has been improved since you've owned it. And I like the idea of adding some more residential, including smaller residential, because it's presumably also more affordable than most of the housing in our village. So I think I could be comfortable with that lot being used. And perhaps to have specific, you know, signage, if you don't mind putting it up, to say backing in only or something. I think backing into that intersection, I'm not a traffic engineer, but that it would scare me if I was doing it.
Yes.
Valerie, can we see this on the screen?
Yeah, we were just trying to, Jennifer's trying to pull it up.
Thank you.
So much easier when it's on
Chief
Zoom.
Osborne is on, and he said if the spots are too far out, it'll be too tight for them to get by with a fire truck to respond to accidents or something on the Sawmill.
Right, so he would be again, is he around? Can we talk to him or no?
I can ask.
Yeah, ask him.
But did he see the plan, or was he like,
Oh, pulling it up right
he talking about this number here? Or is he saying if it went further?
I thought it was something on street parking.
Oh,
So
okay.
in the
We're
one, I
not
can't
gonna.
imagine he cares. about it.
No, chief only cares about in front of
Go
the.
down
Okay,
again.
all right.
Mhm.
Yeah, I can't imagine.
Yeah,
Who knows?
that's fine.
Yeah, but that's a,
Mustafa, you're trying to make that turn from that street down. There's no way.
That with cars there, right?
From the last.
I mean, you know, without.
This is
the
one
plan
on
that's
the
being
website.
shown is an older
Projects.
plan. So right now, these spaces are no longer. I'm just gonna, can I? All right, so the plan, these plans are older plans. So right now, what is only being proposed are the five spaces on the gravel parking lot, where these spaces here are an encroachment onto another property, so they are no longer part of the site plan. But in terms of the tandem spots will be here on the gravel parking lot, and then you have the two spots that he was proposing along Ashford Ave. And the parking lot, while it's gravel now, is being proposed to be blacktopped into an actual parking.
Is that a crossroad that I seen there?
Yeah, there is a crosswalk there.
There is a crosswalk, yes.
Okay.
And one of the fire chiefs are here. If you want me to promote them.
Yeah.
Sorry, Ronnie, that's not my daughter.
Joe, can you hear us?
Daughter walks now. Daughter
Joe, can you hear us?
Joe, can you hear us? Okay, he's turning his camera on, sorry. Joe, we can't hear you.
Or see him.
To answer your question earlier, it's $5,000 per spot for the pilot.
No, not 10. Not 10?
I think it's 10.
For in your fee schedule. Oh, that's the 2020. So did you update it in 2021?
We'll check it.
Jeff, yeah, thank you.
When we approve it, we have to give him the exact amount. We could just say the amount that, I'd like to give him the exact amount so he knows, but I guess we could say it's in the current fee schedule.
He probably knows.
Is Joe
I
around?
probably know.
We can see him on here, but we can't hear him. Joe and
I'm
Billy.
begging for leniency here.
Valerie, do you have the per parking space? I'm told it's $5,000 per space. Is that correct?
That's a valid.
So that's what I just said, but I think they're, Jeff is double checking.
That's what was passed to me. And in addition to that,
Smaller fees
That's what
and
I-
bigger
that's what I
fees and
was-
bigger fees.
That's what I was.
it would be 5,000 per space, so that would be 2 spaces. I believe that the applicant would also have to pay the rec fees, right, for the
Right.
creation of new units.
That's correct.
Yes? And
Yes.
there's also an outstanding escrow that has to be maintained and brought up to date. So I just want to be upfront on all those things that are waiting.
Okay, so we can note that the fire department thinks it's unsafe to park cars on Ashford itself. And if he can hear me and he disagrees with that, let him respond to that. But I'm also assuming that the fire department takes no position on the cars parked in the parking lot. Or maybe they do, so he should type it in on the chat
Email.
or email or text
We
me.
don't want people chatting.
Well, in terms of tonight's public hearing, the public hearing is open. We still have to write a resolution, so there's not a resolution right now for site plan approval tonight. So we still have one more meeting. So if there are some minor outstanding things with the fire department, we
They
can.
said they will email.
Okay. We can address those between now and the next meeting. But really, I think it's in terms of, and ultimately, this project will need a negative declaration from the board. So I think the real primary discussion tonight was really focusing on the pileup, as well as if there's any concerns with the waivers that you would have to be addressing.
Yeah, let's go through the other 2 waivers, right? There's a minimum unit size, sort of variance, for lack of a better term. That's for the unit size of from in the code, I think it's 600 square feet to just under 400 square feet for the proposed unit here. I'm okay with that. I don't know if anyone else.
I'm okay with that.
And then there's an impervious surface coverage. I think again, sort of ties into the parking. We're trying to get on-site parking for very small units.
And we're gonna try and limit coverage.
Yeah, we can't then, exactly. So
Are there any materials that he could use? And I don't know about cost, but is there any materials that he could use that would be better? Or am I making a big deal out of it because you don't think it'll be that much?
I think it's an existing site with a lot of constraints and a lot of sort of overbuilt, pre-code this requirement. So I think it's reasonable to grant that variance also. So those are the 3 that I'm comfortable with. It was just the 2 on street parking. However, there does seem to be, and I can't seem to get the plan or the dimensions, but an opportunity for cutting into the sidewalk at that location, which by the way, is not a location where people need a very wide sidewalk because nobody's walking onto the sawmill. So if they were able to fit the width of a car without going into the street, then that might be.
That's what he's saying, right?
Yeah, except it's sticking out. And I think that's
Here?
the concern is that, sticking out at all is a problem.
What do you mean by sticking out?
I went in parallel in front of the building? Or?
That's right. I'm talking about parallel parking in front of the building in such a way where the entirety of the car can be out of the lane.
Okay, so I would say that having made an observation myself and having sat on the planning board myself for 8 years, has the engineer looked at that for the width? Because I would not recommend any parking at that location. I think you're creating a problem. So has the engineer looked at it?
So the George was the engineer that
No, the
looked at
current
it.
engineer.
Right, so the current engineer has not looked at it because of the recommendation from the planning board to not have those spots in
So
front
I
of
would
the
like him
building.
to look at it and come back.
We
to the
could do that.
recommendations
Once you're
so
at-
we can settle this once and
I
for
think
all.
my gut feeling is still that it's the
Yeah.
wrong place to put it. I think I saw the chief appear briefly, so maybe he is gonna show up again. But I'm okay with those three variances. The last one I'm not quite comfortable with, so.
Because I would be in favor of everything but the parking on Ashford. So
Well, the variance, right, so the waiver is not for the parking on Ashford as opposed to you would have to provide a waiver for the requirement of all parking spaces actually on site.
Because it's supposed to have 8,
Right,
right?
right,
It has
right.
6. And so, I mean,
Yeah.
you're trying to get 8 by doing this, right? And we're saying, don't worry about doing that because that is not safe enough. So
fee.
pay the fee
right.
and then, yeah,
How do you feel about that, Kristen? You're okay with
no, I'm fine with that.
Lauren?
Agree.
Larry?
I'm fine with it.
I mean, I do feel bad about the fee.
Okay, so then it looks like we have agreements to move forward with it, so we can then, at the next meeting, have a resolution prepared for that. Richard?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
Do you have
Actually-
anybody else who wishes to make comments? You have a public hearing, so I wouldn't close it tonight. I would just make sure that you've made sure everyone's spoken who wants to speak.
anybody who wants to speak on this, Jen? All right, so is there a motion to continue this public hearing to October 26th? Trustee Patino, second, trustee DeRozzi, all in favor? Okay. So you may have a resolution, and this may be resolved 2 weeks from today.
Mark your calendar.
I'm gonna.
We're
hold
gonna
that
trust
bottle-
you, David, with the management of those parking spaces.
Aren't you
I
glad
heard
you
your-
bought that building?
All right, guys. Thanks. I do appreciate the time though, and it's always a pleasure seeing you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Presentation number 3 is to consider a request for site plan approval for 100 Danforth Avenue.
Wait, what about 185 Ashford?
Did I skip?
Yeah, you skip. Sorry.
That's why you sit here. See that? I'm sorry to get you all. Can we go to number 2 then? Presentation number 2, which is to consider a request for site plan approval for 185 Ashford Avenue.
Public hearing.
Is there a motion to open this public hearing? Trustee Nell, second, trustee Taylor, all in favor? This public hearing is now open. Who will speak? Who's here from the applicant?
We just promoted Christina Griffin and Suzanne Levine. Thank you.
This particular, we discussed at the last meeting, we went through the seeker. And I also, you advised us to provide a draft resolution for this board's consideration tonight, which you have in front of you as well. So unless there's other outstanding comments, I don't believe there are any other discussions that were outstanding from last meeting with this board on this particular application.
Well, just to clarify, the planning board has approved this, right? We received a recommendation of approval from them, and I think that was dated in July.
Correct, that was all, yes, that was provided last time, and I think there was a comment or a question dealing with some of the restriping of Ashford Avenue, but I think at this point in time, that is clearly a village board decision, and it doesn't necessarily have to be tied to this particular application, because this applicant is providing all required parking on site.
No. Anybody have any questions or comments for the applicant? More, I know you had some concerns about like a tree or something.
Yes, for the last information that I received, I understand that my tree is coming down, so I am staying very quiet right now. Christina, can you confirm? Do you look
Yeah,
into?
actually, we just couldn't find a way to save it, given all the different variables we are working with, wanting to get 20 spots on the parking spots here, getting access to a very comfortable, pretty big size of bicycle storage down below. And given all the different, I guess, objectives of how we're developing the site, especially in that back corner, it's not possible to save that tree. I'm sorry.
I just feel that we are then really removing whatever green spaces on that side of the building and replacing it with that bike ramp. And they are apartments that they are immediately located right by where the parking spaces will be. So it would be ideal if they would have saved the tree. It's going to be very sad to see that tree come down. It's a beautiful, healthy tree, especially now that it's the fall, it's changing colors. So it's just ruined my night right now, but okay.
Well, just Christina, can you just briefly describe the landscaping that will be used?
Well, yes. Hold on a second. We're going to head to the landscaping plan, I believe.
Yeah, this is the landscape plan.
Yeah. Well, one thing I wanted to point out, we're actually adding more green space than what's a little bit more green space than that's there. And we have a landscaping plan that I believe has mostly native plants. And it's, even though we don't have the tree in the back, we are putting new trees along the street in the front. And then the tree and the plant bed right as you come into the driveway, and new plant beds surrounding the building. I don't know if you, Suzanne, if you have any other items to add here, because
I think this is the tree in the corner that's of concern, but it really it really prevents the car from pulling out, and it's just such a difficult spot for that tree. But I think this buffer of green around the building is such an improvement from the front of the street.
Quick question, is that parking spot there because we require it or because you want it? Or both?
Actually, I think we are meeting, even though we meet the parking requirement. I think there was a lot of discussion about whether we are going to have, how much retail space we'll have, and whether the amenity space might be a retail space. And if we eliminate that spot, we would never be able to have more than those two small retail spaces. And there was a lot of discussion, many meetings. I think there were about 9 meetings about the idea of having retail space that would actually work if there was enough parking. And so that's why there was discussion. We kept 20 spaces. We're required to have 19. And also the possibility that maybe the village will put some off-street, on-street parking in front of the building, so that if there's parking there, the retail businesses could have a better chance of thriving.
I will trade you that parking space for that tree.
I think you'd have to either, I think, unfortunately, it was a group decision with many meetings, and I think there's a lot of other interests here in the project. So I don't know. I know Andrew, the owner, is here, Andrew Cortese. I don't know if you have anything to add to that.
Yes, how you doing? I'm the owner, the applicant, Andrew Cortese. I just wanted to make a point that, not only the parking protrudes there, the building overhangs there as well. And the canopy of the tree is probably at least 20 feet wide. So it's probably, 5 to 6 feet away from the existing building at this point. So it has a large canopy, and I think even if we eliminate the parking spot, it would still be very close to the building.
It's probably going to interfere with the construction of the building, correct?
Yeah.
Yes, it's very
Oh,
close.
that's a shame.
So you would almost have to shave, you see it's like 6 feet away from the trunk to the building.
Right.
And, I discussed it with the neighbor as well, and I asked him, if we can maybe put a tree on his side or any other landscaping to, mitigate it, but he said he was fine with it, so. He said in the
Okay,
grand
so
scheme of things. it's
We're
one
ready to
tree.
move forward with this.
Yeah, there's, I guess, one question for the applicant. We were all very satisfied when we last met with with all the other boards. And I just ask if in the process at the planning board and the HRB, if there's anything of significance that was changed since then. If you could point that out now, just so we could understand what those are before we move in.
Are you asking if there are any changes since the AHRB meeting?
Well, I think that since the last time that this board saw it was probably 2 or 3 months ago, perhaps. And I think since then you've been through the planning board, a couple of meetings, and the AHRB, a couple of meetings, and it looks very familiar. I just wanted to ask you if there's anything of significance that has changed since then.
I think, well, we have a greater level of detail to our color and material scheme. We have a lighting layout. We've chosen the exterior light fixtures. There are some minor changes to the landscaping plan, I think, to have native plants. Can you think of anything?
I think the footprint is the same from the group meeting we had with everybody a few months ago. I think a lot of it has been fine tuning of the materials and the windows.
And the railing on the 3rd floor, I think, right?
We took, I'm not sure if you saw this, but we had a roof deck here that was objectionable. So we took that off, and now this is, there's no roof deck on the side of the building looking over the neighbor any longer.
But you didn't
You
change
may have
the
seen
massing.
that, actually. Yeah.
But you didn't change the massing. You just eliminated
No.
that element. So there's still a roof where I'm seeing the dark gray and that elevation. There's a roof level on that 1st floor, and then the building setback, the same way it
Yeah.
was.
Yes. Yeah.
Thank you.
That's true. You can mention
Christina, did we ever presented any views from Virginia Avenue to the building? I think that at one point I did request it to see it, just because Virginia sits much lower than Ashford Avenue.
We had pictures.
I think we have photographs. We did think you could see the building from Virginia Avenue. And we took photographs from that street.
I think we brought them to a meeting, the photographs, and I'm not sure if they are.
Not for the Board of Trustees, because I have not seen it.
Yeah, I think maybe for the planning board, we brought some photographs from Virginia. But
Because
we didn't have a, I have to see, I can try and pull them up, but I don't think they were in the last submission.
there were joint meetings, and I'm sorry if you missed it, but I do recall that we took pictures from there, and
We
then
did.
we found it very hard to see the site from Virginia Avenue. It's too far away, and there's a large trees along the property line.
I like to mention that I saw one of the properties in the back of this building have actually recently removed a lot of trees that were in the backyard. So I'm curious to know, again, considering my tree, I'm going to call it Maura's tree, that once this tree is removed, the mass of green in the back area is a more significant bare, because there's been some significant trees removed in that back section. I just recall that I saw it.
But since it's in the back, who would see it? Right?
No, it's just the green that is in the backyards of those houses.
Right.
And at the same time, the privacy that provides to the backyards and the neighbors that have houses at a much lower level than this building.
But I'm assuming they were notified of this project and then we haven't heard from any of them, from what I know, right?
That's correct. They were notified of the project and they've also had a public hearing at the planning board as well.
Here's a
So look
picture.
through the,
So that would be,
You're on Virginia.
non-Virginia.
Bigger.
just so you guys know, we're looking at a picture of you.
12-inch. Suzanne, do you have a photograph of that?
You know, I'm on Google Earth.
He removed
I'm
all
not
the
digging up
trees.
those pictures at the moment, but I will just, I'll keep trying.
Now he's gonna see a big building.
Okay, I think we're ready to move forward with it. So before us is a resolution. I'm not going to read the whole thing, but I will read part of it. Now therefore be it resolved that the Board of Trustees of the Village of Dobbs Ferry finds that the project is an unlisted action under SECRA, Article 8, and based upon the review of the EAF and all application materials and consultants reports that were prepared for this action, the Board of Trustees adopts a negative declaration in connection with this project. Be it further resolved that the Village Board of Trustees determines that in accordance with Village Zoning and Land Use Chapter, the applicant must provide one affordable housing unit. Be it further resolved that the village hereby finds that a proper case exists for requiring that a park be located for a playground or other recreational purposes within the village, and the village board finds in accordance with section 300 reservation of parkland park that a park cannot be suitably located on the property, therefore requiring a payment of a fee in accordance with the master fee schedule. We had further resolved, the village board of trustees determines that based upon the findings and reasoning set forth below in the application for site plan approval, set forth below, the application for site plan approval is granted, subject to the following conditions. And there's a whole listing of conditions that are placed in this resolution. Including that it must meet the requirements and conditions of the village planner and engineers, landscaping, the parking, the issuance of certificate and escrow. Is there a motion to approve this resolution? Trustee Patino, second trustee Nell, all in favor? I don't see oh, there he is. Okay, that passes unanimously.
Well, sorry.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5-0, 2 absent. So congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you very
Thank you.
much.
Thank you.
Okay.
Good night.
Good luck.
Good night. Thank you.
Good night.
Night.
Done fast.
Oh, it's gonna take a year, I think, according to that plan, right?
Yeah, at least.
Number 3, presentation number 3.
Public hearing.
What do I keep saying? Public hearing, and I'm only at number 3.
This is
There's a
past
long way to
8
go.
o'clock.
You're 0 for 3 so far.
Is there a motion to open the public hearing concerning a request for site plan approval for 100 Danforth? Trustee Nell, second trustee Patino, all in favor? This public hearing is officially opened. Does anybody from, well, let's put it this way. Does anybody from the Board of Trustees have any questions or comments? Anybody from the public have any questions or comments? Okay, so I think we've been presented with this plan and I think we're ready to move forward with it. So is there, I have to close the public hearing.
Yeah.
Trustee Nell, second trustee Patino, all in favor. Public hearing is now closed. I have a resolution before us where we are granting site plan approval for 100 Danforth Avenue. It's been laid out great detail with a lot of conditions. Is there a motion to grant the site plan approval? Trustee Patino, second trustee DeRozzi, all in favor? That passes 5-0 with 2 absence.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Thanks.
You're done.
One more, next one.
Oh,
Yes, you still
it's both?
Public hearing to consider a request for site plan approval for the master school campus at 49 Clinton Avenue. Is there a motion to open this public hearing? Trustee Nell, second trustee Patino, all in favor? This public hearing is open. We have anything from you on this?
In this particular, we have a resolution before this board this evening and also a negative declaration. The negative declaration is more detailed because this is a larger project and there were a number of other environmental aspects that really warranted an additional review and description, and also providing you and the public additional information as to how those various environmental impacts are being mitigated throughout the project.
But it's safe to say that you, the engineers, everyone, all the experts who have looked at it are are satisfied with the,
That's correct.
I'm gonna get,
Secret.
with the actions taken to satisfy SECR and the.
That's correct. And
Okay.
there are, conditions similar in the approvals that you just passed that are all outstanding engineering comments still need to be addressed, as well as all other agencies or any other reviews or permits need to be pulled.
Okay, does anybody on the board have any comments or questions? And I just want to clarify, the planning board did recommend approval of this on September 9th.
That's correct.
2021. Okay. Larry, do you have anything you'd like to ask or add?
No, I do not.
Okay. Is anybody from the public who'd like to speak? Jen? Okay. Is there a motion to close the public hearing? Trustee DeRozzi, second trustee now, all in favor. Public hearing is now closed. We have a resolution before us, which is quite detailed in its background and its requirements that we place upon the applicant. Is there a motion to grant site plan approval for 49 Clinton Avenue, the master school? Trustee Patino, second trustee DeRozzi. Now, all in favor? That passes 5-0 with 2 abstentions, 2 absences. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I want to thank the board, staff, and council for your help on both.
You're welcome.
Remember the sidewalk.
That's right, Donna's not here.
I'm gonna be checking on that. Thank you.
Courtesy of the floor.
I'm
sorry.
Ron Vincent, 8 Pietro Place. You know what I'm here about, the flooding. And I guess about 10 days ago, I received an email saying that 3 catch basins were going to be installed, and I haven't had an update on that. I'm wondering where we are with that. Our problem is still there, and all we need is one big downpour, and I'll lose another $8,000 burner. My losses so far are close to $70,000 on the last flood, not including the flood of July 8th. That's another 25,000. So it's not a pretty picture. My house is I still don't have my workspace in my house. I can't rehearse. I can't practice. I can't do anything. My wife's teaching. She is incapable of, well, the piano is gone. That's it. And now a disaster. And she can't work at home either. So we both worked at home. So it's kind of a life-changing event that happened. So I just want to know where we are and what's happening, how far along we are, and what the master plan is here.
Richard?
Sure, I can respond to that. I think I reported back to you all right after the previous meeting. Since that time, the DPW has been in conversations with our engineer. At this point, they're sizing the catch basins that will be proposed for both Maple and Pietro. And we're looking to see if we can put one on the private property easement as well. So as soon as that work is completed they'll reach out to their contractor, get a price, and it has to then be brought back to the board for approval for an emergency expenditure.
Is there any kind of timeline in your mind that would be like?
I don't have it at my fingertips, no. It would be, I would think, I don't want to say that we should have had it already, but, as far as I'm concerned, it's imminent and very important.
Okay. Okay, thank you. And please
And
keep
you're
me.
welcome to actually email me maybe later this week if I have anything, or when I have something, I'll definitely respond.
I appreciate that. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Anybody else? I know. Okay. Jen, you have somebody online?
Yeah.
Okay.
David, can you hear us?
You're welcome.
Do I have the floor?
You do.
Hi, good evening, everybody. I'm appearing, David Koenigsberg. I'm speaking in my role as Village Justice. And just two things I just wanted to say. One is that I anticipate in the near future that we are going to be hiring new court clerks. So I just wanted to state that in public to see if anybody's interested in applying for the position. I'll be preparing a written statement to a hiring notice for that. And just wanted the public to know that if there's anybody out there who's watching or sees this, if they're interested in applying for the position of village court clerk, which is a very responsible job, but a very interesting one, please reach out to the court and provide, we can answer any questions you may have. And then related to that, I had contacted the board and the mayor and the village attorney about an issue of whether or not we can amend the village code to permit people who are, right now the village code, I think, requires the court clerks to be village residents. And just wanted to put on your radar screen for consideration whether to amend the village code to allow somebody who's not necessarily a resident of Dobbs Ferry, but a resident of Westchester County to be able to fulfill that position. So obviously I'm not asking you to act on that tonight, but I just, the time frame where there may be openings is in January. So I'm going to be actively looking and trying to find somebody, but it may be we need to expand the geographic scope of people who could fulfill that position. So just wanted to raise that and thank you for the opportunity to speak. And if you have any questions, let me know.
We did look at something, if not, didn't we look at something for expanding the geographic area for one of the positions?
Yeah, Lori Lee has actually been working.
Oh, yeah, she is. Can't hear you.
Hi. Yes, actually, it's more than expanding the village code. There are specific provisions that need using your home rule powers to overturn in terms of public officers law, New York State public officers law, and New York State village law. So I have sent a draft to Richard Lyons. I've sent over a draft that comprehensively gives you the ability to expand the geographic locations instead of on a piecemeal basis, which would be a comprehensive way of the village considering applications from far outside the borders of its own village, because village law requires village officers to be village residents. So there is a draft. We're hoping to bring that forward for discussion in 2 weeks. And I can explain further the home rule powers that you will specifically be exercising, but I'm looking to do this comprehensively rather than position by position by position by position. And we'll do it once and get it done. And then Judge, you'll be free to search far and wide.
Okay, well, thank you very much. Really
You're
appreciate
welcome.
it. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Judge.
Well, I would like to add that this is one more effort from the village to try to expand the diversity and inclusion that the village is so hardly working on. So I think that would be a great thing for us to do locally remote outside of the village grounds.
That's a good point. All right. Okay, anybody else from courtesy of the floor? Discussion items, an update on SAM grant projects for new sidewalks on Washington and Walgrove Avenues. Richard, we have a memo from you talking about those sidewalks. You want to expand upon that for the benefit of the public?
Sure. I mean, I can expand for the benefit of the public and the board. This basically is a SAM grant. It's $250,000. And it came through the good efforts and hard work of our state assemblyman, Tom Abenanti, and his associate is on the, I believe Jen is Joanne Sold on, maybe she would like to comment, and then I'll expand upon the project for you all. Joanne, thank you.
Good evening, everyone. I just wanted to say on behalf of Assemblyman Abenanti that he's pleased to have been able to obtain these monies. Sidewalks are definitely a priority for his municipalities, including Dobbs Ferry, and he's interested in supporting safe passage for all our village residents and an opportunity to make our communities more walkable. If there are any concerns going along the way with the SAM process, of course, our office is available to help in any way we can. So thanks for this opportunity and have a great night all.
Yes, and we thank the assemblyman and yourself for your good efforts in working with us to help make this happen. These are basically going to provide for, it's going to be a new sidewalk to replace the existing one on Walgrove Avenue. And it will also install a sidewalk on the western side of Washington Avenue between the, just north of Gould Park. And it will connect with Belden at the other end, and it will facilitate some of the activity that happens there, especially during some games and use of the park. So it will enable people to travel from the one block to the other more safely. And so that's really the gist of the project. And the traffic committee has also provided additional sidewalk access to this path through Spoilers Run. However, that will be an issue we can deal with a little bit later. The substance of the project at this point, the 250,000, the majority of it will go to both the Washington Street and also Avenue on the Walgrove. So project's well needed and consistent with a lot of the priorities that have been brought forward by a lot of the citizenry and your committees.
You know what I am concerned with in your memo, you indicate that Springhurst Park Homeowners Association is responsible for maintaining the sidewalks. I mean, if we build another sidewalk there and they're going to be responsible for it, what have we done and what can we do? Maybe Laura Lee can answer this better, to make Springhurst Park Homeowners Association responsible for maintaining and repairing the sidewalks.
I mean, Lori Lee can maybe able to respond from a legal perspective. I can say that Elisa, Ed Manley and myself all walked out there, and I think he's made numerous efforts to try to impose upon them their obligation to maintain their sidewalk to no avail. So this really, if you're going to take on this scale of a project, it's going to run from 145 Walgrove all the way up to the entrance of the elementary school. So I think it goes well beyond the Springhurst project. So oftentimes you see when you have like a CDBG project or when you have a wholesale replacement of sidewalks, it doesn't always result in charging against the homeowner. It's not an excuse for not pursuing these people more adamantly, but I think if Ed were here, he'd be able to share that he has in fact done that to no avail. It's actually larger than their property.
Well, I would like us to, going forward, to if it's fines and bringing them to court and getting judgments against them, or liens or whatever it is, to, I mean, Springhurst Park Homeowners Association should be responsible, just like anybody else should be responsible for maintaining their sidewalk. So,
Is Lori Lee on here or no? That would be something between the building department and the attorney, actually.
Okay.
You can certainly pursue it. Your point is well taken.
Right, and I would just like to acknowledge the email that we received from Rob Barron dated October 12th, 2021, with the comments that I think, Richard, you talked about as far as creating a network of pedestrian routes and running yellow lines from two small spoilers run, so. I received it.
Can I ask you a question? When, Richard, if we get the funds, when do you see this project actually happening?
I think it's sooner rather than later, right? I mean, we're ready to
It has to
go.
be completed by December 2022.
Lisa, we're,
Oh, 2022. But I'm more thinking of like, because the kids walk home there on that sidewalk. So if we are taking that sidewalk out of commission to fix it, what happens if it's during the school year?
It has to, we could schedule it.
Yeah, okay.
these funds were successfully transferred from another project. So we tried to implement them in something that was needed. Elisa worked very hard on this, so.
Let's get more, Lisa. Can we get more from Tom Avenatti? He's just a friend of Dobbs. He really wants to give, I think.
And working very closely with our assemblyman, so.
Yeah, actually, at the next meeting, there's another project that we help bring, that you'll hear about.
Mhm.
This Rome Street crossing.
Good. Oh, right.
So I don't see it on the agenda as a formal item, but it says in the memo that you're asking us to approve accepting the funds and moving forward. So
It's not, we basically need to get it on your radar so that we could then fill out the paperwork for the
okay,
register of Best the grant, to make sure that.
okay, we want it.
So are you good with moving forward with this despite the question on the Springhurst property?
Yes.
Okay. We'll investigate that as well.
Everybody else okay with that?
Yeah.
Okay.
We should write a mean note.
She should write a real lawyer's letter.
There she is.
Hey, no lawyer jokes. Mr. Mayor, I wondered if 417 Broadway might have checked in by now, because you did postpone that to second call on the hearing, to schedule a hearing. And I know it's on for a resolution to refer, but you really shouldn't until you hear the presentation. And I know,
They're not
I know
present,
you're,
so they're not
I know you're
present, so I'm removing it from the agenda.
all right. Your planner's there. I just want to make sure she's excused if
Oh,
we're not
okay.
going to be hearing that.
You're so much nicer than I am. I just thought she wanted to stay to the bitter end.
She wanted to know about the minutes.
So we'll take it off the agenda and you are free to go. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I'm sorry too. This is the second time it's happened, so. Okay,
Laura Lee, I don't know if you heard the discussion regarding Springhurst Park and the sidewalk and then that.
yep,
Can you look into that, please?
yeah, I'll call them right now. I will. I'll work with Richard and Elisa to check on it right away.
Okay, discussion item number 2 is to consider a resolution to approve a stipulation of agreement with the Teamsters. We have copy of the agreement and we have the draft resolution. Richard, can you give us the highlights of this?
Yeah, so I think we discussed them previously. It was it's a pretty good negotiation. We had probably 5 or 6 sessions, and we ultimately were able to reach consensus. The wage increases I shared with you previously, and it's a 4-year contract, and it will also require an increase in the contribution to medical over time, particularly by new employees.
So just to be clear, the agreement runs from June 1st, 2020 through May 31st, 2024. Effective June 1st, 2020, there'll be a 2.25% increase. June 1st, 2021, a 2.5% increase. June 1st, 2022, a 2.5% increase. And in June 1st, 2023, a 2.75% increase. And I do think what you're talking about referring to Richard is, I think, after 24 months of employment, the new employee shall pay 18% of their annual premium for health insurance. Does that sound right to you?
Yes, that's right. And into retirement.
Into retirement. Okay. I think it's a really good deal, really good settlement. I think everyone gets something out of it, and we have cost certainty. So is there a motion to approve the Teamsters contract? Trustee Patino, second. Trustee Nell, all in favor? That passes unanimously. So I'm assuming that Sacred Heart is not here. They knew about it, didn't they? We were talking about it with them on Saturday.
It's not clear from the material what, in fact, the scope
They want.
is. So it's hard to even talk about.
All right, so that will be removed. We'll move on and we'll address that. Okay, resolutions. Resolution number 1, we've already taken care of. Resolution number 2 is a resolution approving rate increases and other benefits to non-union employees and department heads. This is something that we've traditionally have done. When the contract with the Teamsters is complete, we therefore pass the same, generally the same terms and conditions of employment to the non-union employees and department heads. And the resolution that we, proposed resolution that we have lays it all out, and it's pretty much, you can correct me if I'm wrong, either Laura Lee or Richard, it mirrors the Teamsters contract. Is that correct?
Yes.
So is there a motion to move along with this resolution? Trustee Nell, second. Trustee Patino, all in favor? That passes unanimously. We've already, well, we can't do resolution number 3. Resolution number 4, we've already taken care of. Resolution number 5, we've already taken care of. Resolution number 6, we've already approved. And number 7, is there a resolution to approve the audit of claims as submitted and recommended by the village treasurer? Trustee DeRozzi. Second, Trustee Taylor. This is nothing unusual, correct, Jeff?
Same, just typical audit.
Okay, all in favor? That passes unanimously. Okay, so we had the minutes of September 14th. Any comments or questions with that minutes? Is there a motion to adopt the minutes of September 14th, 2021? Trustee DeRozzi, second. Trustee Tino, all in favor? It's adopted. Minutes of September 28th. Any questions or comments? Is there a motion to accept those minutes? Trustee Nell, second. Trustee DeRozzi, all in favor? That passes unanimously. Planning Board Trustee Liaison Reports, that's Donna. Donna's not here, right? Donna's not logged in, right? Ad Hoc Committee Reports, that's pretty much you, Maura, right?
Yeah, we have a meeting with the Human Rights and Diversity Committee. I believe it's next Monday, the 18th. And I know that the Youth Services Council recently met as we are still trying to finalize the hiring of a new member of our team. But I have not touched base with the team yet in reference to how that call went. That just happened on Friday.
Okay. Any other?
The downtown committee is working on the Phoenicia Flea for June of next year.
Oh,
I
okay.
believe.
Liz, can you remind me the Freedom March?
Walk to
That's
Freedom.
this Sunday?
Um,
Maybe Elisa, maybe you know?
It's the following.
What?
Yes, this Sunday.
It's this Sunday, correct? The Road to Freedom March. It's this Sunday. I don't have it. Does anybody have the time?
Yeah, 1 p.m.
That would be at Gould, you know?
I believe it starts at the cemetery.
Little White Church.
Yeah.
Do you want to acknowledge this?
So I just, to make it an announcement, the Road to Freedom March is this Sunday at 1 o'clock, and it will be at the Little White Cemetery, Little White Church Cemetery. It's a great event. We have a proclamation. I'll be there. So
It actually starts at Gould Park this year. Sorry, just wanted to clarify.
it's at 1 o'clock.
At 1.
Okay. So it's a great event. It's part of our history, and we should honor it. So you should make an appearance. It's great. It's a lot better than when it was in August, when it was 100 degrees to March it. So.
Did you go in full dress?
One other
18th century.
I did not.
Bridges?
Maybe I should.
What's that, Larry?
One other announcement, just a reminder that the River Arts Studio Tour is going to be on the 23rd. So that not this Saturday, but the next Saturday, the River Arts Studio Tour will be happening in all of the river towns, but there are obviously a lot of artists in Dobbs Ferry who deserve our support and who are producing wonderful art.
Thank you for the announcements. Maura reminded me that I do want to acknowledge the board did receive a number of emails regarding the cannabis legislation. So I just want to acknowledge them. Email dated October 6th, 2021 from Zaya Danishmend. Email dated October 6th, 2021 from Peter Regan. Email dated October 6th, 2021 from Michelle Adams. Email dated October 7th, 2021 from Joe Stutz. Email and attachment dated October 8th, 2021 from Patricia Turkin. Email dated October 9th, 2021 from Jason Gluck. Email dated October 10th from Diane Taylor. Email dated October 10th from Kathy Dean. Email dated October 11th from Madeleine Green. Email dated October 12th from Mark Stern. And we received a copy of the letter from Eric Forth, MD, published in the Wall Street Journal, submitted by Madeleine Green. So we do have those, and we will take those into consideration. Any other questions, comments? Is there a motion to close the meeting? Trustee DeRozzi, second. Trustee Nell, all in favor. Meeting is hereby closed. Thank you, everybody.
You have a shindig.